They used to say the Mamba family had everything, a house so big you could get lost in it, land stretching beyond what your eyes could see, and children who wore shoes even when it wasn't Sunday. But like many things that shine on the outside, there was rot growing deep inside. Old Mama Sifa, the neighbor who sold mangoes at the corner, would always say, when the roots rot, the leaves still look green, but wait until the wind comes. Mr. Kofi Mamba had built everything with his own 2 hands. Once a barefoot village boy himself, he'd grown into a hard man with a voice that carried through walls. He'd made money in trade, grains, sugar, and oil barrels. But somewhere along the way he'd lost his laughter. His wife had grown quiet and his children had become strangers to each other. No one in the house looked each other in the eye anymore. They spoke like visitors, ate in. Silence, and when they laughed, it was always alone. Then one morning she appeared. No one knew her name and no one asked. She stood by the gate with dust on her face and feet as thin as matchsticks. She looked no older than 15, wrapped in an old scarf and a dress that had once been pink. The guards tried to chase her away, but Mr. Mamba, looking out from his study, called out instead, "Let her in." When she stepped in, she didn't beg. She didn't cry. She just looked him straight in the eyes and said, "I will work. I clean. I don't eat much." Something in her tone made him nod. He didn't ask questions. He just turned and told the house manager, "Give her a room near the laundry hut." Her name was Naya. No one noticed her at first. The children didn't speak to her. The other maids ignored her. She moved like smoke, quiet and fast. But within days, little things began to change. The garden, which had grown dry and forgotten, started to bloom. The youngest son, Musa, who hadn't smiled in months, was seen laughing, softly, when she made him a small toy lion out of old banana leaves. Even the old dog, Shombo, who'd stopped barking at strangers, wagged his tail when Nia passed. Then came the day of the storm. The winds howled so loud it felt like the sky was angry. A tree fell across the compound wall, crashing into the generator. Everything went dark. The children panicked. The wife, Madame Naima, fainted. But it was Nia who lit a candle and gathered them all in the living room. She sang a lullaby no one had heard before, her voice like warm honey over a drumbeat. She made them tea with ginger and cloves. She whispered words that felt older than the earth. And for the first time in years, the Mamba family sat together in one room, not talking, not fighting, just breathing, together. That night, Mr. Mamba stood in the shadows and watched. His eyes were not dry. What no one knew was that Nia was not just a maid, not just a beggar girl. She had come with a purpose, not for money, not for food, but for something else, something she hadn't told anyone yet. And in the weeks to come, this girl, this small silent strange, would begin to shake the roots of this broken family, and the house that had grown cold would start to feel like home again, but not without a fight, not without secrets coming out, and not without loss. The next morning, the sun rose slow and soft over the Mamba compound. The sky was still bruised from last night's storm, but the air smelled fresh, like the kind of fresh that only comes after something has been washed clean. But not everything had been washed clean. At the breakfast table, there was a strange silence again. But it was different this time. It wasn't heavy. It was expectant, like everyone was waiting for something. Mr. Mamba sat at the head reading a newspaper he wasn't really reading. Madame Naima poured tea with shaky hands. The children sat like guests at someone else's house. Nia walked in carrying a tray of fried plantains and honeyed bread. She placed it on the table without a word, just a polite nod. As she turned to leave, little Musa grabbed her sleeve. "Nia, will you tell the story again? The one with the lion who lost his roar?" All eyes turned to her. Mr. Mamba lowered his paper. Madame Naima froze mid-pour. The elder daughter, Rena, raised an eyebrow. "No," said the second son, Jelani. "Tell the one with the clever goat who tricked the chief." Nia looked at them unsure. Then Mr. Mamba did something nobody expected. He cleared his throat and said, "Let the girl speak." And so she sat, not at the table, but on the cool floor, legs crossed like a griot from old times. Her voice flowed gently as she began her tale, and for 20 minutes the Mamba house listened, laughed, reacted, even argued over what the goat should have done instead. It was the first time they'd shared the same space without tension in what felt like years, but peace in that house was like the wind. It didn't stay long. Later that afternoon, Auntie Kaku came to visit. Now, Auntie Kaku was not really anyone's aunt. She was just that kind of woman, full of gossip, dressed like she owned 5 husbands, with eyes that saw everything and a mouth that never stopped. She was also Mr. Mamba's late brother's widow, which gave her just enough entitlement to walk in uninvited. She took one look at Nia scrubbing the floor and narrowed her eyes. "Who is this thing?" "She's the new help," Madame Naima answered flatly. Kaku clicked her tongue. The help with such clear skin and proud shoulders? Where's she from? Orphan? Street girl? Witch, maybe? Nia didn't flinch. She kept scrubbing like she hadn't heard a thing, but something in her face tightened just for a second. Auntie Kaku wasn't done, she never was. She better not be sleeping near the children. These kinds of girls come with spirits and secrets. Madame Naima tried to laugh it off. "She's just a girl." "Exactly," Kaku snapped, "and girls who appear out of nowhere always bring trouble." Later that night, as the rain whispered against the windows, Nia sat outside under the mango tree alone. Her hands were raw from cleaning, her back aching, but her eyes were locked on the stars. That's when the grandmother, Mama Rua, joined her. She was older than time, it seemed, always quiet, always wrapped in colorful cloth and secrets. She sat down slowly beside Nia, her bones cracking like dry sticks. "You're not just a maid," Mama Rua said softly. Nia looked at her but didn't answer. "I know that lullaby you sang. My grandmother used to sing it to me. Only one clan in the East sings that, the River Clan." Still Nia said nothing. "I knew someone from that clan once," Mama Rua added. "He broke my heart." The 2 women sat in silence. Finally Nia whispered, "I came here for a reason." Mama Rua nodded. "I know. And they'll all know. Soon too." Inside the house the tension was building again. Auntie Kaku was stirring poison, the older son was growing suspicious, and secrets buried deep were beginning to move, like snakes waking in the heat. But Nia was ready. She hadn't come to beg. She'd come to heal, and healing sometimes meant breaking. The days that followed were like slow footsteps on cracked earth, each one heavier than the last. Something was changing inside the Mamba house. You could feel it in the air, like the scent before rain. But with change came resistance. Jelani, the second son, was the first to speak up. "I don't trust that girl," he said one evening at dinner, poking at his stew. "She stares too much, like she knows things." "She does nothing but clean and tell stories," Rena replied, arms crossed. "If that scares you, maybe you're the one hiding something." Madame Naima sighed. "Enough. She's just a girl." "No, she's not," Jelani muttered, too quiet for anyone but Nia, who was standing in the doorway to hear. That night, Jelani crept into the laundry room. He was looking for proof, anything. He opened her bag, tore through folded clothes, even sniffed an old scarf like it might reveal something. He didn't find gold. He didn't find potions, but he found a small cloth pouch, stitched in red thread, with a symbol he didn't recognize. Inside was a folded note, so old the ink had faded, and a necklace made of river stones and carved bone. When he showed it to Auntie Kaku the next morning, she nearly dropped her tea. "Where did you get this?" she hissed. "From her bag." Kaku clutched the necklace. "This is from the River Clan. They say their daughters are born under full moons. They speak to spirits, bring dreams, bring curses." "She said nothing," Jelani said. "She just walks around like she owns the place." "She's come to curse this family, I'm telling you," Kaku spat. "Mark my words." But in truth, Nia hadn't come to curse anyone. She was watching, listening, learning. Every corner of the Mamba house whispered old pain, and she was following it like smoke follows fire. She saw how Rena slept with her back to everyone, holding her phone like a lifeline. She saw how Jelani flinched when his father raised his voice, how Musa often hid in closets just to feel silence, and how Madame Naima looked at Mr. Mamba like she was remembering someone who used to be kind. She also noticed the photograph in the hallway, the one with 5 people, not 4. A boy older than Jelani, smiling between his parents, but no one ever spoke his name. One night Nia asked Musa about it while they were folding clothes. "Who's the boy in the picture?" she asked softly. Musa looked up. His little hands froze. "That's Malio." Nia waited. "He died," Musa whispered. "No one says how." The next morning, Mr. Mamba found her by the front gate, staring out at the road. He walked up behind her, but she didn't turn. "You shouldn't ask about things that don't concern you," he said, his voice quiet but firm. She looked up at him. Her eyes were calm, but sharp. "Maybe that's the problem." "No one ever asks." He didn't reply, just walked away, slower than usual. That evening it happened. Mama Rua collapsed in the kitchen. The house erupted into panic. Madame Naima screamed. Rena cried. Mr. Mamba froze, helpless. But Nia stepped forward, calm, steady. She knelt beside the old woman and pressed her hand to her chest. "She's not gone," Nia said, "but she needs something stronger than medicine." "What do you mean?" Rena sobbed. Nia looked at her. "She needs truth." No one understood. Not yet. But later that night, as the family waited for the doctor, Mama Rua opened her eyes just long enough to grab Nia's wrist and whisper, "You know what broke this family?" And Nia nodded, because she did, and now the time had come to bring it out, all of it. The next morning no one spoke much. The house felt heavy, like it was holding its breath. The doctor had come and gone, saying Mama Rua needed rest, but her words to Nia had already done the damage. Something had been stirred awake, and Nia could feel it pressing against the walls. She began cleaning early, not because she had to, but because she needed to move. With every sweep of the broom, with every bucket of water she carried, she listened to the silence between the rooms. She knew things were ready to break. She just didn't know when. It happened that evening. They were all sitting around the dining table. No one was really eating. The food was untouched, the air thick. Mama Rua lay in her room, asleep, but breathing. And Nia stood in the corner, as she always did. Then Mr. Mamba spoke. "Who told Musa about Malio?" Everyone froze. Rena dropped her spoon. Madame Naima stopped chewing. Jelani stiffened. Nia didn't move. "I asked a question," he said again, louder. "Who opened that door?" Still no answer. So he stood up, chair screeching against the floor. "Do you think it's a game? Do you think that boy's name is something to be tossed around for your amusement?" Rena stood too now. "No one's laughing, Baba." "You think I don't know what this is?" he barked. "That girl," he pointed at Nia, "comes into my house, and suddenly everything's upside down? You think I don't see what's happening?" "Maybe if you'd seen what was happening before," Rena snapped. "Malio wouldn't have jumped from the roof." Silence, the kind that swallows breath, the kind that makes the walls pull back. Even Auntie Kaku, sitting on the side like a buzzard, looked stunned. Mr. Mamba stared at his daughter like she had slapped him. "You don't know what you're talking about." "I do," she said. Her voice cracked, but she held it steady. "He came to you. He begged you to let him quit school, said he couldn't take it anymore. But you told him he was weak, that no son of yours would act like a girl, that he should toughen up." Jelani pushed back his chair. "That's not fair." "It is fair," Rena shouted now, tears in her eyes. "We all heard him cry at night. We all knew he was drowning, and none of us did anything. We were so scared of you, Baba, so scared." Mr. Mamba's lips parted, then closed again, then parted once more, but no sound came out. And then Nia spoke. "You still carry his shoes," she said quietly. "In your closet, hidden behind your coats. I saw them when I was dusting." His head snapped toward her. "You kept them," she went on, "not because you miss him, but because you don't believe he's gone, and he's not." "What do you know?" Mr. Mamba whispered, shaking. "I know his spirit never left this house," she said. "I feel it. Every time the wind blows through the hallway, every time Musa looks at the rooftop, every time you walk past his picture and can't meet his eyes." Tears filled Madame Naima's eyes now. "We thought we were protecting ourselves. We thought if we just stopped saying his name, the pain would stop. But pain doesn't disappear," Nia said. "It waits and grows." Suddenly Mama Rua's voice rang out from the hall, cracked but clear. "And if you do not let it out, it will eat you from the inside." Everyone turned. She was standing in the hallway, leaning on the wall, her eyes bright with tears. Told you long ago, she said, looking at Mr. Mamba. You cannot be king of this house if your throne is built on silence. Mr. Mamba dropped into his chair like a man who had been carrying a mountain. He buried his face in his hands. I was trying to be strong, he whispered. You were trying to be a man, Mama Rua said, but you forgot to be a father. That night, the family didn't sleep. They sat together. No yelling, no pointing. Just quiet, honest, soft. They talked about Malio. They cried for him, and for the first time in a long time, they held each other. And Nia, the beggar girl they never meant to notice, watched from the shadows, because this was just the beginning. The family was healing. But healing always asks for more. The morning after that long, tear-soaked night, the Mamba house felt lighter. Not healed, not yet, but like someone had finally opened a window in a room that had been sealed for years. The dust was still there, but now there was air. Now there was breath. Mr. Mamba didn't come out for breakfast. He stayed in his room with the curtains drawn, the shoes of his dead son on the floor beside his bed. No one disturbed him. Not even Madame Naima, who had spent the last decade walking on eggshells around his grief. Nia moved through the house as usual, but everyone looked at her differently now. Not just as the maid, not just as the strange girl with quiet eyes. They watched her like she was part of something, like she belonged somehow. Even Auntie Kaku kept her mouth shut, though her eyes still darted with suspicion, searching for something she could not name. It was Musa who broke the silence first. He knocked on Mr. Mamba's door. Silence. He knocked again. Baba? Still, nothing, but instead of leaving, the boy slid something under the door, a crumpled piece of paper with shaky handwriting. Can we say his name out loud now? I miss Malio. Hours passed. Then the door creaked open. Mr. Mamba stepped out. His eyes were red, his face hollow, but there was something else in him, a kind of softness no one had seen in years. At lunch he sat down at the table and said one word, Malio, and just like that, the dam broke again. Stories poured out, funny ones, sad ones, regrets, memories. Even Jelani, who had built a wall so high even Rena couldn't climb it, shared how Malio once stayed up all night helping him study for a math test. I failed it anyway, he said, half laughing, but he made me believe I wouldn't. And as they laughed and cried, Nia quietly placed a bowl of sweet porridge on the table, Malio's favorite, made the exact way Mama Ruva used to. No one told her. She just knew. Later that evening, Madame Naima found Nia in the garden, where the rain had made everything bloom brighter. You've done something in this house, she said, her voice trembling. I don't understand it, but I feel it. Nia didn't look up. I didn't do anything you weren't ready for. But how do you know us? How do you know what we need? Nia was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, because I lost a family too. Madame Naima froze. What do you mean? Nia looked at her now, her eyes glassy. When I was small, my village flooded. My parents drowned, trying to save a neighbor's child. After that, I moved from home to home. Some treated me well, others didn't. But I listened, I watched, and I learned one thing. Broken families aren't healed by money, or silence, or pride. They're healed by truth, and by someone willing to speak it. Madame Naima reached out slowly and touched Naya's hand. You can stay here as long as you want. You're not just help. You're family. But not everyone felt the same. That night, Auntie Kaku called someone on the phone. She's dangerous, she whispered. She's bewitched them, even the master. She's digging into the past, and the more they let her in, the more they'll forget who they are. I need you to come. Bring the chief. Bring the council if you must. This girl must be sent away. Outside, the room. Nia stood in the hallway, eyes closed, body still. She had known this moment would come, because healing doesn't come without resistance, and light always draws out the shadows. 2 days later, the council arrived. They didn't come with weapons, but their presence was sharp enough. 5 men and 1 woman, dressed in long, deep-colored robes, each carrying a carved staff that marked their position in the village elder circle. Their footsteps were heavy, their eyes heavier. At the front was Chief Danjuma, a tall, lean man, with skin like burned bark and a voice that could silence storms. He did not smile, not even when Mr. Mamba greeted him at the gate. "We were told there is a girl here," the chief said, getting straight to the point, "who is meddling in the spirits of the dead." "She's just a maid," Mr. Mamba replied, though there was hesitation in his voice now. "A girl with kind hands and a heavy story." "Then she should not fear questions," the chief said. "Let us speak to her." Inside, the house was cold again. All the warmth Nia had helped bring back seemed to shiver at the corners, waiting to see what would happen. Nia stood in the center of the living room, the family around her. She wasn't dressed in anything grand, just her usual soft scarf and simple wrap dress, but she stood tall, steady, as if the floor had grown roots beneath her feet. The council sat in a half-circle around her. Auntie Kaku lurked near the wall, a shadow in lipstick and pride. "Your name?" the chief asked. "Nia." "Your people?" "I don't know." "You do," he said sharply. There was a pause. Then she answered, "River Clan. My mother whispered it to me the night the water came. That's all I remember." The council stirred. "You carry a charm," the female elder said, "the necklace of stone and bone. That is not for decoration." Nia nodded. "It belonged to my mother." "Why are you here?" the chief asked. Nia looked around the room. Her eyes landed on Musa first, then Jelani, Rina, Madam Naima, and finally Mr. Mamba. "I came because this house was broken, because pain was living here like furniture, because the spirit of a boy who never got to become a man was crying every night from the rooftop." The room shifted. "You speak like a priestess," one elder said, "but you are not trained." "I'm not," she said, "but sometimes grief teaches better than any school." The chief leaned forward. "What gives you the right to speak to their dead? To walk into a home that is not yours and stir what is meant to rest?" "I didn't stir it," she replied, voice steady. "It was already boiling. I just refused to pretend it wasn't." "Witch," Auntie Kaku spat suddenly. "She sings to shadows and talks to old women in dreams. Ever since she came, the children speak back. The mother questions the father. The family no longer knows its place." Mr. Mamba stood then. "No," he said quietly. "Since she came, we finally started being a family again." Kaku turned. "You defend her?" "I do," he said, "because she brought my son back to me. Not in flesh, but in memory. And I needed that. We all did." The chief looked at the others. "And the rest of you?" Madam Naima stepped forward. "She gave us back our voice," Rina added. "She reminded us we are allowed to feel." Even Jelani, who rarely spoke when it mattered most, said, "She's the only one who saw us as more than what we pretend to be." The council looked at each other. Then the chief said, "What she's done may not follow tradition, but perhaps it is time tradition listens too." He turned to Nia. "You may stay, but you are to use your voice with care. Truth is powerful, and power without humility is dangerous." Nia bowed her head. "I understand." But Auntie Kaku wasn't. "Done?" She rushed out, yelling, "You'll regret this. Spirits always ask for something in return, always." The door slammed behind her. The council left soon after. The house was quiet again, but it wasn't fear anymore. It was peace. Later that night, as the stars returned to the sky, Nia sat beneath the mango tree, her hands folded, eyes closed. "Mr. Mamba walked out and joined her. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then he said, "What do we give you for what you've done?" She looked at him and smiled, just a little. "You already gave me something," she said. "You let me belong." The peace didn't last forever. It never does. Just when it felt like the Mamba house had started breathing again, with laughter returning in pieces, meals shared without clenched jaws, and memories spoken like blessings instead of curses, the past came knocking one last time. But this time it wasn't whispers or grief or family shame. It was blood. It started the night Musa didn't come home from the market. He'd gone with the driver to pick up sugar and dried fish for Mamaruwa's soup, but only the driver returned. Breathless, sweating and babbling. "They took him," he gasped. "Two men, black car, said nothing, just grabbed him and drove off." Panic cracked through the family like thunder. Rina screamed. Jelani punched the wall so hard it left a hole. Mr. Mamba, for the first time in years, dropped to his knees, and Nia closed her eyes. She knew this wasn't just a random crime. It was Auntie Kaku, and whoever she had called from the old days. She had tried to bring outsiders into this house. The council hadn't helped her, so she'd gone deeper, called on something older than reason, the kind of people who believed balance wasn't restored without sacrifice. They had taken Musa to force her out, to make her leave, to scare the Mambas into giving her up. But they had picked the wrong child, because Nia had made a promise to herself the night she lost her family. If she ever found another one, even for a little while, she would never let anyone steal it from her again. That night, she didn't sleep. Instead, she took off her scarf, let her long, tightly braided hair fall down her back, and walked barefoot to the shrine by the tree, the same tree that stood at the edge of the compound, where birds never perched and even dogs avoided at night. There she lit a small fire with herbs only known to her people, crushed root, dried blossom, and ash from her old village. Then she whispered. She didn't pray. She called, and something answered. In the morning, she told Mr. Mamba where to go. An old tobacco factory near the East Ridge. Musa is there. He didn't ask how she knew. He just went, with Jelani. And when they returned hours later, bruised, exhausted, but holding Musa in their arms, the house didn't cheer. They wept, even the guards, even the cook, even old Mama Rua. And when Musa opened his eyes and asked, "Is Nia safe?" the whole family turned to look for her, but she wasn't in the kitchen, or the garden, or the laundry hut. She had left. All she'd taken was the stone and bone necklace and a small bag of clothes. On her bed she'd left a folded piece of cloth, the one with the red thread, and a note written in shaky, careful script. "I came when you needed me. I leave now that you can carry each other. Love isn't about staying forever. Sometimes it's about being there when it matters most." There were no tracks, no trail, just peace. For the first time in years. Weeks passed, and though the house had returned to a quiet rhythm, it was never the same again, not in the way things are. After a storm, everything still stood where it always had. The tall wooden doors, the dusty photo frames, the mango tree by the garden. But the air had changed. The family had changed. They spoke now, really spoke, over breakfast, over walks in the yard, over slow afternoons where no one rushed to forget their feelings. Musa no longer hid. Rena didn't walk around with headphones glued to her ears. Jelani asked questions instead of giving orders. And Mr. Mamba, he started saying things like, "I was wrong, and I'm trying, and, most shocking of all, I love you." Mama Rua recovered slowly, but every day she would sit under the mango tree, sipping hot tea, smiling quietly. "I always knew the ancestors wouldn't abandon us," she'd say, tapping her cane twice for emphasis. "They just had to send the right child." But Nia had vanished like wind in the reeds. The family searched. They sent messengers to nearby villages. Mr. Mamba even drove to the river border, asking traders and fishermen if they'd seen a girl with proud eyes and a quiet spirit. No one had. She was gone. And yet, she was everywhere. The garden bloomed in colors it had never known before. Musa kept a woven bracelet Nia had made, tied to his wrist like protection. Rena began telling her own stories, using the exact same rhythm Nia used to use by the fire. Madame Naima placed a chair for Nia at every dinner, even though no one sat in it. And Jelani, in a move no one expected, started teaching street children in the neighborhood, because Nia once said every child has a story, but not every story has someone to listen. One evening, just as the sky turned the color of fire, Mr. Mamba sat alone under the mango tree. His hands were rough, tired, folded in his lap. He didn't cry. He just whispered, "Wherever you are, thank you." And something happened. The tree rustled, not in the wind, not in the usual way. A single mango fell, soft, perfect, right at his feet. He looked up. No birds, no breeze, just sky, and on the mango's skin was a strange mark, a faint red thread woven into the stem like a knot. He picked it up and smiled, because he knew. She wasn't lost. She was moving on. Another home needed healing. Another broken family was whispering pain between the cracks, and Niamh, the beggar girl, the maid, the spirit walker, the daughter of water and wind, was already on her way.